This one's on the house, Evie. Owen Beck slid the blueberry muffin onto the small plate, setting it beside the black coffee he'd just poured. It was 6:05 a.m., and it was a lie. The kitchen hadn't made an extra. It was his muffin, the one he usually ate in the back room before his shift. But he couldn't bring himself to eat it. Not when he looked at her. For 3 months, she'd been here, sitting in the back booth as the sun rose. Worn-out coat, exhaustion etched around her eyes, and a quietness that felt heavier than just being tired. She always ordered the 90-cent coffee and nothing else. She'd nurse it for an hour, reading a tattered paperback, and then slip out, leaving a $1 bill on the vinyl tabletop. Owen was a single father, counting every penny to pay for his daughter Maya's breathing treatments. He knew what desperate looked like. He saw it in his own mirror every morning. Giving this woman a muffin he couldn't really spare. It was the one part of his day where he felt like he wasn't drowning. Usually Evie just gave a small, grateful nod, her eyes never quite meeting his. But this morning, she didn't. She looked up, and for the first time, her gaze was sharp, clear, and fixed. Right on him. It sent an unexpected jolt through him, making the coffee pot in his hand feel heavy. "You can't keep doing this, Owen," she said. His throat tightened. She knew his name. He'd never told her. It was just on the stained name tag pinned to his apron. But her voice was different, too. Not the weak, weary whisper he was used to. It was strong, steady, and laced with an emotion he couldn't place. Sadness. Owen froze. It's just a muffin, ma'am. Kitchen mistake. Don't let it go to waste." "It's not just a muffin," she said softly. A sleek, black sedan, a car that cost more than Owen's entire apartment building, whispered to a stop at the curb right outside their booth. The diner's cheap neon sign warped across its polished hood. Owen stared at the car, then back at the woman in the threadbare coat. His mind couldn't connect the two images. A man in a dark tailored suit stepped out of the driver's side and stood rigidly by the car door, waiting. Evie followed his gaze, then turned back to him. A small, sad smile touched her lips. "You really don't remember me, do you?" Owen's mouth opened, but nothing came out. He just stared, the coffee pot still in his hand, a drop of hot liquid splashing onto his wrist. He barely felt it. Remember her? From where? He was sure he'd never seen her before she started coming to the Oakwood. Before he could find a single word, she stood. She didn't look at the muffin. She left the $1 bill on the table as she always did, a strange, now baffling gesture of routine. I'll see you, Owen," she said, her voice quiet again, but changed. The strength was still there, but it was veiled. She walked past him. He didn't turn, just watched her reflection in the window as the man in the suit held the car door for her. She slipped into the dark leather interior without a backward glance, and the car pulled silently away from the curb, disappearing into the growing morning traffic. He was left standing in the aisle, the smell of burnt coffee sharp in his nose. "Beck, you gonna stand there dreaming all day?" Frank, the diner's owner and cook, barked from the kitchen pass-through, his voice a gravelly roar. "Table 4 needs a check, and the co-op just dropped off the eggs. They're blocking the back." Owen flinched, snapping back to reality. "Yeah, Frank. Sorry, on it." He hurried to table 4, his mind a buzzing hive of confusion. He fumbled with the checks, gave the wrong change to a regular who just grunted and corrected him, and nearly dropped a plate of pancakes. He finally went back to the booth. Her booth. The dollar bill was there, the untouched muffin. He picked up the plate, his hand shaking slightly. It was a lie. A game. What was it? Was she homeless, or was she someone else? Someone playing a trick. The thought made him feel sick. He dumped the muffin into the trash, the waste of it stinging more than usual. He pocketed the $1, his tips for the day. He felt like a fool. The rest of the morning shift was a blur of refills and orders. The Oakwood Diner was a small place, a relic from another time, with its cracked vinyl booths and a jukebox that only played songs from the 70s. It was struggling, Frank was always reminding them, But it was a job. It was the job. The one with the barely passable health insurance that kept his daughter alive. At 2 o'clock, he hung up his stained apron, the smell of grease and coffee clinging to him. He pocketed his meager tips, $62, and headed out. The walk home was 6 blocks. He spent them replaying the morning. The car, her eyes. You really don't remember me? He climbed the 3 flights of stairs to his apartment, the hallway smelling of stale cooking and dust. He opened his door, 3B, as quietly as he could. Hey, Daddy. His heart eased, just as it always did. Maya was on the sofa, curled under her favorite quilt, her sketchbook on her lap. She was 9, but looked smaller, paler than she should. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. Hey, Doodlebug, he said, forcing a smile. He walked over and kissed the top of her head. How's the chest today? Buzzy? A little, she whispered, her voice breathy. The ever-present nebulizer machine sat on the end table, a silent sentinel. Mrs. Gallo from 2A brought me a comic book. That was nice of her, Owen said. He sat on the edge of the coffee table, his eyes scanning her. Her breathing was shallow. It was always shallow. Did you use your inhaler after lunch? She nodded. It didn't help much. Owen's forced smile tightened. He ran a hand over his face, the rough stubble a familiar, tired feeling. Okay, well, let's get the nebulizer going then. We'll blast those buzzies away. As he prepped the small plastic cup of albuterol, his eyes fell on the kitchen counter. A stack of mail. On top, a pale blue envelope from the pediatric pulmonologist's office. His hand stilled. He knew what it was. He picked it up. It was a bill for her last checkup. The copay his insurance hadn't covered. $350, and stapled to it was a small, printed note. Mrs. Beck's file is flagged. Please call our office to discuss Dr. Aris's recommendation for the new treatment plan. Your current provider has denied the pre-authorization. Denied? Again. Owen stared at the paper, the $350 feeling like $3 million. He looked at his $62 in tips. He looked at his daughter, who was coughing, a small, dry hack that rattled his bones. He was failing. He was a 35-year-old man, and he was failing. He couldn't even keep his only child breathing right. And in the middle of this cold, sharp panic, the morning's mystery returned, feeling less like a puzzle and more like an insult. A rich woman in a threadbare coat, playing games in his diner while his life was falling apart. He crushed the bill in his fist. Okay, Bug, he said, his voice rough. Let's get this mask on. As the machine's loud hiss filled the small, quiet apartment, Owen sank onto the worn armchair, the woman's words echoing in his head. You really don't remember me, do you? He stared at his daughter, her small shoulders rising and falling with the rhythm of the machine, and he felt a cold, bitter anger. No, he whispered to the empty room. I don't. And I don't care. The hissing of the nebulizer machine was the only sound in the apartment for 20 minutes. Owen watched the small wisp of vapor, his mind 1,000 miles away, turning the morning's encounter over and over. The woman's face, the car, her impossible question. It felt like a riddle he was too tired to solve. When the last drop of medicine was gone, the machine gave a final sputtering cough. He unhooked the mask from Maya's face. Her breathing was already clearer. The buzz in her chest quieted for now. Better, Doodlebug? Better, she agreed, her voice stronger. She was already reaching for her sketchbook. Can we have mac and cheese for dinner? The good kind. Owen forced a smile. The good kind was the brand name, twice the price of the generic. He thought of the $62 in his pocket. He thought of the $350 bill on the counter. You bet. Mac and cheese it is. The rest of the evening was a painful pantomime of normalcy. He helped her with her spelling homework, laughing at the right places. He made the mac and cheese, adding a chopped-up hot dog for protein. They watched a cartoon, and at 8 o'clock, he tucked her into bed, making sure her emergency inhaler was on the nightstand, where it always was. Night, Daddy. Good night, Maya. I love you. Love you too. He closed her door and leaned against it, the fake smile melting from his face. The apartment was silent again, but now the silence was heavy, suffocating. He walked to the kitchen and picked up the bill from the specialist. Denied. He smoothed out the paper he had crushed earlier. Please call our office to discuss Dr. Aris's recommendation. Dr. Aris's recommendation. It was a new biologic treatment, a monthly shot that, the doctor had explained, could actually stop the inflammation, not just manage the symptoms. It could give her a normal life. It was also, as the insurance company had gleefully informed him, one of the most expensive drugs on the market. He looked at his $62. He looked at the bill. He felt the familiar cold panic rise in his throat, the one that came every night after Maya was asleep. He was a 35-year-old single father, trapped in a low-wage job, and his daughter's future was being decided by a denied stamp. He didn't sleep. He sat on the lumpy sofa, the TV on mute, just watching the hours tick by, dreading the morning, dreading the 5 a.m. alarm that would send him back to the diner to fight for another $62 in tips. When the alarm finally went off, he felt like he hadn't slept at all. He dressed in the dark, splashing cold water on his face, and slipped out of the apartment, leaving Maya sleeping. The city was dark, the air cold and sharp. The walk to the diner was automatic, his feet knowing every crack in the pavement. He was just tired. Tired of the fight. Tired of being scared. He turned the final corner, and he stopped. There was something on the diner's front door, a bright white, official-looking piece of paper flapping in the dawn wind. His blood went cold. He ran the last 20 feet, his heart hammering. It wasn't a health inspection. It was a legal notice. Notice of lease, sir. Termination. He stared at the words, his mind unable to process them. Lease termination. Vacate in 14 days. He fumbled for his keys, his hands shaking so badly he dropped them. He finally got the door open and stumbled inside. Frank! Frank was already there, sitting on a stool at the counter, a single unlit cigarette dangling from his lips. He wasn't in his apron. He was just sitting in the dark. Frank, what is this? Owen said, his voice a hoarse whisper. He held up the notice. 14 days? This is a joke, right? Frank looked up. His face was gray, his eyes dead. It's no joke, kid, he said, his voice a gravelly rasp. I got the call last night. They sold the building, the whole block. Sold it? But who? You have a lease. Had one, Frank said. He tapped a pile of papers on the counter. A buyout clause. I never thought. Who'd want to buy this old dump? He let out a harsh, dry laugh. Some high-rise developer. Reed Dynamics. They're tearing it all down. Building some glass tower for billionaires. Owen felt the floor drop out from under him. Reed Dynamics. The name meant nothing to him, but the words 14 days were a death knell. Frank, he whispered, clutching the back of a booth. The insurance. My insurance. Frank's face, already a mask of despair, crumpled. Oh, kid, I didn't even... God, Owen, I'm sorry. The policy terminates with the business in 2 weeks. I can't... There's nothing I can do. This was it. The specialist, the denied treatment, the $350 bill. All of it had just become a sick joke. In 14 days, he wouldn't even have the high-deductible plan that paid for her basic inhalers. He was completely, utterly, and finally ruined. He was standing there, his entire world collapsing into a black hole of panic, when the bell above the door chimed. The sound was so normal, so routine, it was violent. It was 6:05 a.m. Owen turned, his movements stiff, robotic. The black sedan was at the curb. The same one. The man in the tailored suit was holding the door open. But the woman who stepped out, it wasn't Evie. This woman was immaculate. She wore a dark, razor-sharp business suit. Her hair, which he'd only ever seen lank and tired, was pulled back into a sleek, severe bun that screamed power. She wore heels that clicked with sharp authority on the pavement. She walked into the diner. Frank, stunned by the vision of wealth, scrambled to his feet. "Ma'am, I'm sorry, we're closed." The woman ignored him. Her eyes, the same ones he'd seen weary and exhausted, were now sharp, clear, and locked on Owen. She walked right up to him, stopping a foot away. She looked at his stained apron, at his pale, shocked face. Then she reached into her suit jacket and pulled out a small, heavy card case. She slid a single card out and held it out to him. Owen stared at the card, then at her. He didn't take it. "Take it, Owen," she said. Her voice was the one from yesterday, the strong one. Slowly, his hand trembling, Owen took the card. The cardstock was thick, embossed with a silver logo. Evelyn Reed, Chief Executive Officer, Reed Dynamics. Owen's vision swam. He read the name, Reed Dynamics. He looked at the notice of termination in his other hand, Reed Dynamics. He looked at Frank's gray face, Reed Dynamics. He looked up, from the card, to her face. The woman he'd given a free muffin to, the woman he had felt sorry for. "You?" His voice was a dry croak. He felt the blood drain from his face, the diner tilting. "Reed Dynamics, that's you." He pointed a shaking finger at the notice on the door. You're her? You're the one tearing down the diner?" Frank just gaped, looking back and forth between them. "Owen, what?" Evelyn Reed looked at him, her face unreadable, but her eyes were filled with that same impossible sadness. "You really don't remember me, do you, Owen?" Owen's mind reeled. The two images, the tired woman in the worn coat, the powerful CEO in the tailored suit, slammed together, and the disconnect was so violent it made him feel dizzy. "Remember you?" he choked out, his voice a low, harsh rasp. "What? From where? High school? Are you kidding me?" He took an involuntary step back, bumping into a table. The betrayal was a physical, sickening lurch in his stomach. All those mornings, the free muffins, the quiet, shared understanding of being on the bottom. It was all a lie, a game. "You've been, what? Coming in here slumming it?" He spat, his hands balling into fists. "Just to see what it's like? A little poverty tourism before you bring in the bulldozers?" Frank, who had been frozen by the counter, finally found his voice. "Owen, what the hell are you talking about? Lady, who are you?" Evelyn's gaze didn't leave Owen's. "My name is Evelyn Reed. I am the CEO of Reed Dynamics." Gina, the night shift waitress, who had just arrived and was standing by the door, let out a small, strangled gasp. Frank looked like he'd been punched. "You," Frank pointed a shaking finger at her. "You're the one. You're the one throwing us out on the street." "It's complicated, Frank," Evelyn said, her voice still quiet, but with an edge of command that wasn't there when she was Evie. "Complicated?" Owen laughed, a high, sharp sound that was closer to a sob. "It looks pretty simple from here. You come in, you pretend to be one of us, you let me feel sorry for you." The humiliation burned him. He'd given her his own food. He'd worried about her, all while her name was on the notice that was about to kill his daughter. My daughter is sick," he said, his voice shaking, the words ripping out of him. "She needs medicine. She needs a specialist this insurance, this job, barely pays for, and in 2 weeks, that's gone. Because of you. And you've been sitting there watching me, letting me give you free muffins? Was it funny? Did you and your rich friends have a good laugh? Oh, the poor waiter. He's so worried about his little girl, and he's giving me his breakfast." "No!" Evelyn's voice cracked, and for the first time, she looked genuinely hurt. "Owen, that's not what this is. I'm trying to stop this." "Stop it?" Frank burst out. "You're the CEO. You can't stop it? You just sign the checks and look the other way?" "You don't understand," Evelyn said, exasperated. "This deal, it was orchestrated by my vice president, Harrison Croft. He's been making these aggressive land deals. It's a long story. It's a power struggle. I've been coming here as Evie to investigate him. I didn't know this was your diner, Frank. And I didn't know you were here, Owen. You knew my name this morning, he accused. I read your name tag, she said. But I didn't. Not until I saw your face. I haven't been back to this city in 20 years. I came to this diner because I suspected Harrison was using it for back alley meetings. I had no idea. Until I saw you. She took a step closer, her eyes pleading, desperate. Owen, please. You have to listen to me. This is not what it looks like. My name, it wasn't always Reed. It was Evelyn Rivas. Owen stared. Rivas. The name echoed, faint and tinny, from a place in his memory he hadn't touched in decades. A place of manicured lawns, polished floors, and a coldness that had nothing to do with the weather. A blurry image flashed in his mind. A girl, younger, maybe 16, crying, soaked to the bone, standing by a massive black wrought iron gate. My father was your groundskeeper, Evelyn said, her voice thick. Julio Rivas. He worked on your family's estate, until your father fired him for taking a sick day. Threw us out of the groundskeeper's cottage with an hour's notice. We had nothing, Owen. We were standing by the main gate in the pouring rain, and you... Owen's breath hitched. He remembered. He was 15, home from boarding school. He'd found her, the groundskeeper's quiet, dark-haired daughter. He'd argued with his father, a cold, unyielding man who just scoffed and told him to mind his business. He remembered running back to his room. He remembered the $300 cash he had from his birthday. He'd run back down, shoved it into her hand, and mumbled, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just go. Get somewhere safe. He was staring at her now. The same eyes, the same face, just harder, sculpted by time and clearly by fortune. Evie, he whispered, the name tasting alien. Evelyn. Rivas. Yes, she said. Frank and Gina were looking back and forth between them, utterly lost. Owen felt the ground drop out from under him. The woman he'd helped was the girl he'd helped 20 years ago. And now she was back, richer than his father had ever been. And she was the one putting him on the street. The irony was so bitter he almost laughed. So, what is this? He asked, his voice dead. Revenge? You came back to show the rich kid what it feels like? Because my family, we lost everything years ago. That house, the money, it's gone. So you're a little late if you're here to gloat. No, Evelyn's voice was sharp. Gloat? Owen, that money you gave me, it saved my family. It got us on a bus to Chicago. It let me finish high school. I never forgot. I've been looking for you for years to thank you, to pay you back. Pay me back, Owen snapped, the rage returning, hotter this time. By firing me? By taking away my daughter's health care? You call this paying me back? I am trying to stop Harrison, she insisted. He's trying to force me out of my own company. He's using this land deal, making it look aggressive, fast, and profitable, to prove to the board that my compassionate leadership is failing. He's sabotaging me. And you're caught in the middle. It was too much. Too many lies. Too many twists. His head was spinning. The man in the suit, who had been standing silently by the door, suddenly stepped forward, his phone in his hand. He spoke in a low, urgent voice. Ma'am, it's Croft. He's just called an emergency board meeting. It's in 1 hour. He's pushing the Midtown revitalization vote. Evelyn's face hardened. The color drained from it, replaced by a cold, steely resolve. The CIO was back. He's trying to push it through before I can expose him. She started for the door, then stopped. She looked at Owen, her expression a mix of steel and desperation. Don't believe what you're seeing. This isn't over. I'm going to fix this, Owen. Fix this, Gina said, her voice rising. My mom's in a home. I need this job. How are you going to fix that? Evelyn looked at her, then at Frank, then back at Owen. Just give me 24 hours. Don't sign anything. Don't talk to anyone. Just wait. And then she was gone. The black sedan pulled away from the curb, leaving a cloud of exhaust. Owen, Frank, and Gina were left in the silent, doomed diner. "What the hell was that?" Frank whispered, his voice shaking. Owen just sank onto a stool, his legs giving out. He stared at the termination notice, then at the door she just walked through. He had just bet his daughter's life on the 20-year-old memory of a girl at a gate, and he had a terrifying feeling that he was about to lose. The diner was dead silent. The sound of the sedan's engine fading away was replaced by the low hum of the soda fridge. Gina was the first to move. She slowly walked to a booth and sank into it, her face pale. I think I'm going to be sick." Frank hadn't moved. He was still standing behind the counter, staring at the door. 20 years, he whispered. 20 years, I've seen it all. But the groundskeeper's daughter? He shook his head, as if trying to wake himself up. Then his face hardened, the brief moment of shock replaced by the grim reality. "Don't," he said, his voice a low growl. Owen looked up. "Don't what?" "Don't get your hopes up," Frank said, turning to him, his eyes heavy. "Don't believe a word of it. 24 hours. Fix this. You heard her. Power struggle. Board meeting. She's not a girl from the neighborhood anymore, Owen. She's one of them. She's in a fight with other billionaires, and we're just the mud they're slinging at each other." "But she said—" "She remembered," Owen said, his voice weak. "She remembered," Frank scoffed, throwing his hands up. "Great. She'll send you a fruit basket while her bulldozers tear this place to the ground. She's saving her own skin, kid. And in 24 hours, she'll have forgotten us all over again. We're done. It's over." Owen looked at Frank's defeated face, at Gina, who was quietly crying into a napkin. He felt the last flicker of hope die. Frank was right. It was a fantasy, a cruel, bizarre story from a life he didn't even belong in. He was a waiter. She was a CEO. And he had 14 days. I gotta go," Owen mumbled. He walked to the back room, unhooked his apron, and hung it up. For the last time. The thought hit him with the force of a physical blow. He didn't even bother clocking out. He just walked out the front door, the termination notice still taped to the glass, mocking him. The walk home was a blur. The city was waking up, people rushing to jobs, to lives. He felt like a ghost, disconnected from all of it. He was a 35-year-old man, unemployed, with no prospects, and a daughter who was a ticking clock. He let himself into the apartment. It was 8:15 a.m. Maya was just finishing her cereal at the kitchen table, her school uniform on. "You're home early, Daddy," she said, her voice bright. Owen leaned against the door frame, the sheer, crushing weight of his failure pressing down on him. He couldn't tell her. He couldn't be the one to break her heart, to scare her. He had to pretend. "Yeah," he said, forcing a smile that felt like broken glass. "Mr. Frank, he's not feeling so good. He closed the diner early." "Oh," she said, her face clouding with concern. "Is he okay?" "He'll be fine," Owen lied. "Come on, Bug. Let's get you to the bus." He walked her to the bus stop, held her hand, and waved as the bus pulled away. Just like any other day. The second it turned the corner, his smile collapsed. He walked back to the apartment, the 24-hour clock in his head. 23 hours left. 22 hours left. He spent the day in a cold, hollow panic. He sat at the kitchen table with his old dented laptop. He searched for jobs. Waiter, server, bartender. It was all the same. Benefits available after 90-day probationary period. 90 days. Maya didn't have 90 days. Her specialist, Dr. Aris, had said she needed the new treatment to start now. He closed the laptop. It was useless. He looked at the phone. He thought about calling the insurance company, begging for an extension. He thought about calling the specialist's office, begging for... what? Charity? He buried his face in his hands. Frank was right. He was done. At 6 p.m., he was heating up leftover mac and cheese, his body moving on autopilot when his phone rang. He snatched it, his heart leaping into his throat. "Evelyn." It was an unknown number, blocked ID. He hesitated, then answered, his voice rough. "Hello? Mr. Owen Beck?" The voice was male, sharp, and smooth as glass. It was laced with an authority that didn't ask, it told. "Yes," Owen said, his guard instantly up. "Who is this?" "My name is Harrison Croft. I'm the Executive Vice President of Reed Dynamics." Owen's blood went cold. He stood up straight. The man from the legend. The villain of Evelyn's story. "I understand," Harrison continued, his voice cool and unbothered, "that our CEO paid you a rather dramatic visit today." Owen said nothing, his hand gripping the phone. "I'm calling," Harrison said, his voice dropping to a confidential, almost friendly tone, "to make sure there's no misunderstanding. Ms. Reed, I'm afraid, is unstable. That emergency board meeting she ran off to, it was to discuss her fitness to lead. She's been erratic, emotional. She's trying to sabotage a multi-billion-dollar development deal over a personal whim. The board is concerned." He was sowing the doubt, and it was working. She's trying to use you, Mr. Beck," Harrison said. "She's found this very sad story. Your diner, your daughter, is it? And she's planning to use it to make some last-ditch emotional play. It's messy. And I'm calling to tell you it's not going to work. She's going to be ousted." "What do you want?" Owen spat. "Pragmatism," Harrison said, his voice instantly hardening. The silk was gone, revealing the steel beneath. "I've reviewed your file. Maya Beck, age 9, chronic respiratory illness. That's a tragedy. And that insurance plan Frank Gallo offered, it was pathetic. And in, 13 days? It's gone." A cold, sharp fear, worse than the panic from before, stabbed Owen. He knew. This man, this stranger, had looked up his daughter. He had looked up her health. "You?" Owen was speechless. "It's just due diligence, Mr. Beck," Harrison said smoothly. "I'm offering you a way out. A way to bypass all of Evelyn's melodrama. She can't help you. She's finished. But I can." Owen leaned against the counter, his legs weak. What offer?" "I'm authorized to offer you a severance package, a transition bonus, let's call it. Far more than your boss, Frank, is getting. We'll write you a check, tomorrow, for $50,000. Owen's breath caught in his throat. 50,000. He thought of the specialist, the scans, the new treatments. He thought of the eviction notice on his own apartment door. $50,000 wasn't just a lifeline. It was a new life. What do I have to do?" he whispered, hating the weakness in his own voice. "Simple," Harrison said. "You sign a standard non-disclosure agreement. You agree that Ms. Reed's visit was harassing, unstable. You don't answer any more calls from her. You just disappear. You and your daughter take the money, and you start fresh, somewhere new. Far away from this messy business. And if I don't?" Harrison's sigh was theatrical, as if he was disappointed in Owen's lack of intelligence. "If you don't, you're tying your sinking ship to Evelyn's. And she's going down, Mr. Beck. In 13 days, you'll have no job, no insurance, no diner, and no offer. You'll just have your problems. I'll have my assistant text you the offer. You have until morning to accept. Think about your daughter, Owen. It's the only smart move you have left." The line went dead. Owen slowly lowered the phone. His hand was trembling violently. He stared at the wall. He had just been given an impossible choice. He could take the dirty money and save his daughter, or he could trust a 20-year-old memory of a girl at a gate. And lose everything. Owen stared at the dark screen of his phone, his hand shaking so violently he had to set it on the counter. $50,000. The number echoed in the tiny, silent kitchen, louder than any sound. It was a fantasy number. It was a winning lottery ticket. It was life. He looked around his cramped apartment, the crack in the plaster above the sink, the second-hand sofa with the springs starting to poke through, the stack of red-stamped final notice bills on his counter, right next to the $350 specialist bill he couldn't pay. $50,000 would erase all of it. It would pay for the specialist. It would pay for the new biologic treatment, even without insurance. It would pay for a new apartment in a clean building, one without mold in the walls or neighbors who smoked in the hallway, one that wouldn't make Maya's buzzy chest worse. It was the answer to every prayer he'd whispered in the dark, every panicked night he'd spent staring at the ceiling. All he had to do was sign a paper. All he had to do was say Evelyn was unstable. Wasn't she? She'd come in, disguised as a homeless woman, for 3 months. She'd played a part, lied to his face, watched him struggle. And then she'd told him some wild story about a corporate power struggle, a 20-year-old debt, and asked him to bet his daughter's life on her. Frank was right. It was erratic. It was unstable. Harrison Croft, on the other hand, he was a shark. He was a monster. But he wasn't offering a 24-hour hope. He was offering a check. Owen's phone buzzed. A text message. Mr. Beck, per our conversation, here is the digital severance and NDA. Please sign and return by 9 a.m. Upon receipt, the funds will be wired. He tapped the link. A formal, legal document popped up. Hereby attest that the actions and visit of CEO Evelyn Reed were unsolicited, erratic, and caused significant emotional distress. His stomach twisted. He'd be calling her a liar. He'd be giving Harrison the weapon he needed to destroy her. But $50,000. He thought of Maya. He thought of her small, pale face, her breathy, shallow coughs. What did his pride matter? What did his loyalty to a woman he hadn't seen in 2 decades matter when weighed against his daughter's next breath? This wasn't a choice about him. It was a choice about her. A good father would take the money. A good father would save his child. He reached for the phone, his thumb hovering over the tap to sign button. And then he stopped. He thought of Harrison's voice. Smooth, cold, and utterly casual. I've reviewed your file. Maya Beck, age 9, chronic respiratory illness. He hadn't just offered help. He hadn't just offered money. He had gone into the shadows, dug into Owen's private life, and found the one thing that would make him bleed. He had found his daughter's medical chart. He had found her, a 9-year-old girl, and he had put a price tag on her suffering. He had used her as a weapon. Evelyn had lied to him, yes, but she had looked him in the eye. She had shared something with him. She had asked him to trust her. Harrison Croft hadn't asked. He'd threatened. He'd blackmailed. If he took this money, he wasn't just signing an NDA. He was making a deal with the kind of man who would use a sick child as leverage. He'd be just like him. He'd be confirming that, yes, my daughter's health is for sale. Daddy? Owen jumped, the phone clattering to the counter. Maya was standing in the kitchen doorway, her blanket wrapped around her shoulders, her face pale from her afternoon nap. My chest feels buzzy again. Owen looked at his daughter, her small face etched with worry, her breathing just a little too fast. Then he looked at the phone, the digital contract glowing with its $50,000 promise. And in that second, something inside him solidified. It wasn't pride. It was a cold, hard rage. This man, Harrison, had used his daughter. He'd dangled her health as a bargaining chip. He took a deep breath. He picked up the phone. He ignored the text from Harrison's assistant. Instead, he went to his call log. He hit redial for the blocked ID number. It rang once, then clicked. Harrison, clearly surprised he'd call back so soon, picked up. Mr. Beck, I assume you've read the agreement. You're making the smart no, Owen said. The silence on the other end was absolute. What? What did you say? I said no. Owen's voice was quiet, but it didn't shake. You can keep your money. You don't. You don't get to talk about my daughter. For a second, there was only breathing. Then, the friendly, silky mask of Harrison Croft dissolved, replaced by pure, cold venom. I think you're making a catastrophic mistake, Mr. Beck. A $50,000 mistake. Yeah, Owen said, his hand balling into a fist. Maybe I am, but I'm not taking it. You fool, Harrison hissed, his voice a low, furious snarl. You sentimental broke fool. You think she's going to save you? I'm pushing the vote through tonight. By 9 a.m. tomorrow, your deadline, by the way, she won't even be CEO. You're tying your sinking ship to hers, and you're going to drag that sick little girl right down with you. Goodbye, Mr. Croft. You'll regret this, Harrison shouted, his voice cracking with rage. When you're standing in the unemployment line, you'll remember this call. I'll make sure of it. I'll see you on the street, Beck, you and your kid. Owen hung up. He slowly lowered the phone. His hand was trembling violently. He stared at the wall. He had just turned down $50,000. He had just turned down the only real chance he had. He had just declared war on a man who held all the cards, a man who had already proven he would fight dirty. Evelyn's 24 hours were almost up. He had just bet his daughter's life on her. "Daddy," Maya whispered, tugging on his shirt. "You're shaking." Owen looked down at her, his vision blurring. He sank to his knees, pulling her into a fierce, desperate hug, burying his face in her hair. He had no job, he had no money, he had no plan. He had no idea if he'd just saved them or if he'd just destroyed them for good. Owen held Maya, his entire body trembling, the echo of Harrison's final, venomous threat. "I'll see you on the street, Beck, you and your kid," still ringing in his ears. "Daddy, you're scaring me," Maya whispered into his chest. That one sentence cut through his paralysis. He was terrifying his own child. He loosened his grip, pulling back just enough to look at her. Her eyes were wide, her face pale. "I'm sorry, baby," he said, his voice thick. He forced his muscles to relax, forcing a smile that felt like a grimace. "I'm not scared. I was just so angry." At that man on the phone. He was a very, very rude man. A bully. "Was he the man who's taking the diner?" she asked, her voice small. Owen's smile faltered. "He's part of it. But you know what? He's not going to win." He said the words, desperate to believe them himself. "Now, let's get that nebulizer. We've got buzzies to blast." He got her set up, his hands still shaking as he poured the small vial of medicine. The rhythmic hiss of the machine filled the apartment, but it couldn't drown out the screaming in his head. 50,000. You fool, you fool. He went through the motions. He read her a story. He tucked her into bed, her breathing already easing. He kissed her forehead. "Night, Daddy. Don't let the rude man win." "I won't, Doodlebug," he whispered. "I promise." He closed her door and leaned against it, the strength draining out of him. He was a liar. He just promised his daughter something he had no power to deliver. He didn't sleep. He sat on the lumpy sofa, the television off, the only light coming from the street lamp outside. He just watched the clock on the microwave. 10 p.m. Harrison was in his meeting. "I'm pushing the vote through tonight, 1 a.m. Was she still CEO? Or was she, like him, sitting in a dark room, her life in ruins? 4 a.m. The city was silent. He felt utterly, completely alone. 5 a.m. His alarm, the one he didn't need to set. He got up, his body aching, and made coffee. He watched the sun rise, a dirty orange smear across the sky, and felt nothing but dread. At 7:45 a.m., he got Maya up. He made her oatmeal, his movements stiff and robotic. He had to pretend. One last time. He walked her to the bus stop, the air cold and sharp. "Have a good day, baby," he said, hugging her, his voice rough. "You too, Daddy." "Go beat the bully," she said, giving him a quick, brave smile before running onto the bus. He watched it pull away, and the second it turned the corner, the fragile composure he'd built for her shattered. 8 a.m. He was back in his apartment. 8:30 a.m. He was pacing. 8:45 a.m. He was staring at his phone. Harrison's deadline. 9 a.m. The end of Evelyn's 24 hours. 8:58 a.m. His heart was hammering so hard he felt it in his teeth. 8:59 a.m. He held his breath. The clock on the microwave flipped. 9 a.m. Nothing. The phone didn't ring. No text, no email. Just silence. He stood in his kitchen, his body numb. The silence was the answer. It was the loudest, most definitive no he could have ever received. Harrison was right. She'd lost. The board had pushed her out. She was gone, and she'd taken his last, stupid, sentimental hope with her. He had turned down $50,000. He had chosen loyalty to a ghost, and in doing so, he had sacrificed his daughter. The weight of his stupidity, his failure, was so profound, he couldn't breathe. He sank onto a kitchen chair, his head in his hands. It was over. He sat there for an hour, maybe two, in a hollow gray fog. He was done for. He'd have to beg Frank for his last paycheck. He'd have to go to the welfare office. He was his father at the end, broke, and a failure. He couldn't just sit here. He couldn't. He had to do something, even if it was pointless. He stood up, his legs stiff. He'd go to the diner. Maybe Frank was there, packing. Maybe Frank had heard something. Maybe anything. He walked the 6 blocks, his feet like lead. He felt exposed, the whole world knowing he was a fool. He turned the corner, and his heart stopped. Frank was there, and Gina. They were standing on the sidewalk, and so was Harrison Croft. He was immaculate, a silver tie pin gleaming, a condescending smirk on his face. He was flanked by 2 large men in dark, expensive suits. A third man, a locksmith, was kneeling by the diner's front door, his tools out. "This is illegal," Frank was yelling, his face a deep mottled red. "You can't just... We have 14 days. The notice says 14 exclamation mark, the notice," Harrison said, his voice projecting, calm and victorious. "Was a courtesy, Mr. Gallo. Your lease contains a change of ownership clause that permits immediate termination. My lawyers found it this morning. A pity yours didn't. You're trespassing." You bastard!" Gina sobbed. Harrison just smiled. Then he saw Owen. His smirk widened. His eyes lit up with pure, vindictive pleasure. He pointed a gloved finger at Owen. "Ah, Mr. Beck, our moral crusader. Come to watch the end?" he called out, his voice dripping with triumphant scorn. 9 a.m., Owen. The deadline passed. And look, here I am. And where's your savior? Where's Evelyn? Owen just stood there, frozen on the sidewalk. "She's gone," Harrison said, taking a gleeful step toward him. "The board voted last night. No confidence. She's been relieved of her duties. It turns out you can't sabotage your own company for a sob story. You backed the wrong horse, Owen. You chose poorly." The locksmith gave a click, and the diner door swung open. "Gentlemen," Harrison said to his security, "secure the property. Mr. Gallo's belongings can be collected from the city dump tomorrow." This was it, the absolute bottom. He had failed. He'd bet on Evelyn, and she'd vanished. He'd traded his daughter's future for this, public humiliation. "It's a pity, really," Harrison sneered, walking right up to Owen, so close he could smell his expensive cologne. $50,000. That would have paid for a lot of medicine. But now, you have nothing. I told you I'd see you on the street. Enjoy the view." Harrison gave a satisfied nod, as if he'd just won a prize. He turned to walk back to his car, a black sedan, identical to Evelyn's, purring at the curb. He was turning to leave, his victory complete, when his phone buzzed. A loud, insistent vibration. At the same second, Frank's phone, in his pocket, buzzed, and Gina's, and Owen's. A mass alert, all at once. Harrison pulled his phone from his pocket, his smirk fading into annoyance as he looked at the screen. "What is this?" Frank mumbled, pulling out his own phone. "Local news? Read dynamics?" Harrison's face went white. The color drained from it so fast he looked like a corpse. He stared at his screen, his thumb frantically scrolling. "No," he whispered, his voice a strangled sound. "No, she couldn't. The vote. We won." "What?" Owen said, stepping forward. "What is it?" Harrison looked up, his eyes wide, no longer with malice, but with pure, unadulterated panic. "She's at City Hall," he hissed, more to himself than to them. "She called an emergency press conference. She's leaking the internal documents. She's live, right now. Frank fumbled with his phone, his thumb jabbing at the screen. "News alert. What? How do I—" "Give it to me," Owen said, his voice sharp. He snatched the phone from Frank's hand. His own fingers felt numb, but he managed to tap the notification. A live stream popped up. There she was, Evelyn Reed, standing at a city hall podium, a bank of microphones in front of her. She wasn't Evie. She wasn't the flustered woman from the diner. This was the CEO. She was composed, cold, and in total command. "Which is why," she was saying, her voice clear and cutting through the small phone speaker. "Effective immediately, Reed Dynamics is freezing the Midtown Revitalization Project." A dozen reporters shouted questions at once. Evelyn held up a hand. Silence. "This project," she continued, her eyes scanning the room, "was pushed through by an executive in my company, Mr. Harrison Croft." Harrison, who had been frozen by the curb, let out a strangled sound. She's insane. She's destroying the company. She's lying." "Who, my internal investigation has confirmed," Evelyn went on, her voice like ice, "has been engaging in a pattern of predatory and unethical practices, acting far outside his mandate and, in fact, against my direct written orders. He has been using intimidation and bad faith loopholes to force small business owners from their properties." Owen and Frank just stared, mesmerized. "She can't prove that," Harrison hissed, fumbling for his own phone, trying to call someone. "This is slander. I'll sue her." Evelyn leaned forward, her expression hardening. His flagship example, the Oakwood Diner, a beloved community staple, run for 25 years by Mr. Frank Gallo. Mr. Croft served them a 14-day eviction notice, and then, this morning, moved in with security to forcibly evict them, in direct violation of that notice, simply out of personal malice. The room exploded. Reporters were on their feet, shouting. Evelyn held up her hand again. "It gets worse." The room went silent. "My investigation uncovered that Mr. Croft's office illegally accessed the private medical records of a diner employee, a single father. He then used that child's chronic respiratory illness as leverage." Owen felt the blood rush to his head. Gina gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Frank looked at Owen, his eyes wide with a new horror. In a disgusting and frankly criminal attempt at blackmail, Evelyn's voice was filled with a cold, controlled fury. "Mr. Croft offered this man, Mr. Owen Beck, a $50,000 bribe in exchange for a false statement attesting to my instability, which Mr. Croft planned to use to oust me." Harrison looked like he'd been shot. No, she can't." Evelyn looked directly into the main camera, as if she was looking right at them. At him. Mr. Owen Beck, who has nothing, who was facing the loss of his job and his child's health care, refused the bribe. It was that refusal, that act of integrity, that confirmed the depths of Mr. Croft's corruption and triggered this final action. This was not business. It was extortion. It was done to artificially inflate quarterly profits to trigger a multi-million-dollar bonus in Mr. Croft's own contract. It was fraud. And it ends today. She didn't pause. As of 1 hour ago, based on this evidence, the board of directors held an emergency vote. They have not, as Mr. Croft has been claiming, removed me. They have, in fact, voted unanimously to remove him. Harrison Croft has been terminated from Reed Dynamics, effective immediately. All evidence of his fraudulent contracts and his extra-legal activities have been turned over to the district attorney's office. I trust they will pursue this with the appropriate vigor. Harrison was no longer just pale. He was gray, sweating through his expensive suit. His phone was ringing, buzzing incessantly on the sidewalk where he'd dropped it. "This is insane," he finally yelled, finding his voice. She's lying. The vote. No." He jabbed a finger at his 2 bodyguards, who were standing stone-faced by the diner door. "Get the car. Get the car now. We're going to the office." One of the guards, the larger one, didn't move. His earpiece had been buzzing. He held up a hand to Harrison, listening. Then he nodded, his voice a low, professional monotone. Yes, sir. I understand. He's right here. We will. He hung up, or disconnected. He looked at his partner, then at Harrison. The condescending sneer, the panic. It all slid from Harrison's face, replaced by a dawning, sickly comprehension. "Mr. Croft," the guard said, his voice flat, devoid of any respect. "We've just received a call from the head of corporate security. You are to be escorted from the premises." "What?" Harrison whispered. "You work for me. I hired you." "Our contract is with Dynamics, sir," the guard said. "And we've been instructed to collect your key card, your company phone, and to inform you that you are trespassing. Your assets have been frozen." He held out a thick, gloved hand. Harrison looked at the hand, then at Owen, then at Frank. His face, which had been gray, was now a deep, blotchy red. He was trembling with a rage so profound it seemed to shake his entire body. "You," he hissed at Owen. "You did this. You pauper, you did this." With a roar of pure, pathetic rage, he ripped his keycard from his belt clip and threw it at the guard's chest. He took his own phone, the one he dropped, and instead of handing it over, he smashed it on the pavement again and again until the screen was spiderwebs. "You'll all hear from my lawyers," he screamed, his voice high and cracking. "She'll be in prison. And you'll be on the street begging. You'll all be begging." The two guards grabbed him, one by each arm. He struggled, but it was useless. They were professionals. They half-dragged, half-walked him to their car, not his, an unmarked black SUV that had been parked down the street. They pushed him into the back seat, and the car pulled away. Harrison Croft was gone. Owen, Frank, and Gina were left in the sudden, echoing silence. The locksmith, who had been frozen by the door, slowly stood up, gathering his tools. "So, you guys still want these locks changed, or—" Frank, who looked like he'd just seen the face of God, took a shaky breath. "Get the hell off my property." The locksmith scrambled to his truck and sped off. On Owen's phone, the press conference was still playing. The room was in chaos. A reporter was shouting over the others. What about the diner, Ms. Reed? What happens to the employees now?" Evelyn's face softened. The CEO was gone, and for a second, Evie was back. "I will be going to the Oakwood diner personally as soon as this is over," she said, her voice quiet but carrying over the noise. "I need to apologize to a very good man, an old friend who I failed to recognize, and I need to make things right." The live stream ended. Owen's phone screen went dark. The silence that fell on the sidewalk was absolute, broken only by a distant siren, and Gina letting out a long, shuddering sob that was half laugh, half wail. Frank was still staring at the phone, his face ashen. He looked up, not at Owen, but at the front door of his diner. He walked over to it, his movements stiff. He touched the glass, right where the termination notice had been, before Harrison's men had ripped it down. He's gone," Frank whispered, his voice thick. He turned to Owen, his eyes wide with a kind of dazed, punch-drunk awe. "Kid. She did it. That girl. She blew him up. On live TV. She talked about you." Owen just nodded, his throat too tight to speak. He felt hollowed out. The terror of the last 48 hours had been so all-consuming that now, in its absence, he just felt empty. Number. He had won. He just hadn't processed what that meant. She said she was coming here," Gina said, wiping her nose on her sleeve. Is she really?" As if on cue, a black sedan, the same black sedan from the morning, turned the corner. It wasn't the SUV that had taken Harrison. It was her car. It pulled to a smooth stop at the curb, right where Harrison's car had been. Owen, Frank, and Gina took an involuntary step back, a nervous triangle on the sidewalk. The driver's door opened and Evelyn Reed stepped out. She was alone, no driver, no security. She was still in the dark, powerful suit, but she looked exhausted. The steel from the press conference was gone. She looked, Owen thought, like she hadn't slept in a week. She stood by her car, just looking at them. At the diner. At the broken phone on the pavement. Frank, ever the pragmatist, was the first to speak. "So," he said, his voice hoarse, "you fixed it." A small, pained smile touched Evelyn's lips. She walked forward, stopping a few feet from him. "Mr. Gallo, Frank, Yes, but that's not the half of it. What Harrison Croft did to you, to this place, to your staff, it was unconscionable. I am so deeply, truly sorry." Frank just grunted, crossing his arms. He wasn't going to make it easy for her. "Sorry's good. Making things right is better. That what you're here to do?" "Yes," Evelyn said. She didn't flinch. "I'm not here to honor the lease, Frank. I'm here to tear it up." Owen felt his stomach clench. "What?" "But you said—" "I'm tearing it up," she continued, looking at Frank, "because you shouldn't be paying rent to a company that nearly destroyed you. As of this morning, Reed Dynamics is transferring the deed for this building. It's yours, Mr. Gallo. Free and clear." Frank's jaw dropped. The tough guy facade crumbled. You're giving me the building?" "It's the very least I can do," Evelyn said. "My company is also providing a $250,000 grant for renovations, lost wages, and to cover your legal fees. Consider it a corporate apology. My assistant will be contacting you this afternoon with the paperwork." Frank just stared at her, his mouth opening and closing. He looked at Gina, who was openly crying now, her hands over her mouth. He looked back at Evelyn. I... Evelyn gave him a small, respectful nod, and then, finally, she turned to Owen. The corporate mask fell away completely. All the strength, the anger from the press conference, it was gone. She just looked vulnerable. She looked like Evie. "Owen," she said, her voice quiet. Frank, seeing this was no longer his conversation, grabbed Gina's arm. "Come on, Gina, I gotta make a call. I gotta call Sal." He pulled her gently toward the corner, giving them space. Owen and Evelyn were left alone on the sidewalk, in front of the diner. "You're angry," she said. It wasn't a question. "You lied to me," he said, his voice a low rasp. "For 3 months, you sat there. You let me give you muffins." The word sounded so stupid, so small. "You let me pity you, while you were her." "I was never laughing, Owen," she said, her voice fierce, her eyes flashing. "God, no. Never. I was investigating. Harrison was my father's protege back before I took over. He's old guard. He hates me. He's been trying to force me out since I got the job. I knew he was cooking the books, making these predatory land deals to make the company look hyper-profitable so he could trigger a clause and force a buyout. I couldn't prove it from my office. So I became Evie." You were here? Investigating?" "I was sitting in that booth, listening to him and his men strong-arm Frank, gathering evidence. I came back in the mornings because, I don't know, it was quiet. It felt real. And then," she looked down, "then you started being kind to me. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know you were that Owen, not until I saw your face up close. The kid from the gate. You could have told me," he said. "You could have stopped this." "And put you in danger," she said, her voice rising. "If Harrison knew I was talking to you, that you knew who I was, what do you think he would have done? He would have crushed you. He would have seen you as a conspirator. I had to keep you out of it, until I had him, completely." Owen thought of the phone call, the $50,000, the threat against Maya. "He called me last night." Evelyn's face, which had been soft, turned to stone. "I know. You know?" "My security team flagged a call from his office to an unlisted number. They were already monitoring him. They recorded it, Owen." Owen stared at her. He offered me $50,000 to say you were unstable, to disappear." "I know," she whispered, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "And I know that you said no. The press conference. Harrison thought the board had voted him in. They hadn't. They were on the fence. They were terrified of his numbers. They thought I was too emotional. They were about to vote no confidence. What changed? You did, she said. I played them the tape. Your call. I played them a recording of a billionaire, Harrison, threatening a waiter, Owen, using his sick daughter as a weapon. And I played them your no. I played them you, with nothing, turning down $50,000 to do the right thing. It wasn't just evidence, Owen. It shamed them. It saved my company. Owen just stared at her. His no hadn't been a bet. It had been the evidence. Why, Owen? She asked, her voice a whisper. He offered you a way out. He offered you Maya's health. Why didn't you take it? Owen thought for a long time. He looked at the diner door. Because, he said, meeting her eyes. He talked about my daughter. He put a price on her, and I don't know. Because 20 years ago, I gave a girl at a gate $300. It wasn't a lot, but it was mine, and it was a choice. Taking his money, that wouldn't have been a choice. It would have been giving up. I guess I'm just not him. Evelyn let a single tear roll down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. No, she whispered. You're not. She took a shaky breath. Frank gets his diner. But I have a different offer for you, Owen, if you want it. I'm not a waiter anymore, am I? No, she said. Harrison's fraud. It wasn't just this diner. He hurt dozens of families, small businesses. I'm starting a foundation, the Reed Community Fund. It's being funded personally by me and by every asset Harrison Croft had with my company. Its entire mission will be to fix what he broke, to help the families he targeted, to invest in communities, not destroy them. She leaned forward, her hands clasped. I need someone to run it, someone to be its director. Not a numbers person, not a lawyer. I need a human being, someone who knows what it's like, someone I can trust, implicitly, to do the right thing, always. Owen felt his heart stop. You're offering me that? I'm offering you a job, Owen Beck, she said, a real smile, the first one he'd ever truly seen, spreading across her face. A new office, a full-time staff, and a salary that will, well, let's just say, you won't be worrying about bills anymore. She held his gaze, her expression softening, all business gone. And Owen, the health insurance, it's the executive plan, the best we have, 0 deductible, full coverage, for you and for Maya, starting today. Owen just looked at her, the CEO, the girl at the gate, the woman in the worn coat. He thought of the job sites, 90 days. He thought of the $50,000. He thought of his no. And he thought of Maya. He started, his voice thick. You don't have to answer now, she said quickly. Yes, Owen said, his voice clear, steady. Yes, I'll do it. Evelyn's smile was small, but it was the first one he'd ever seen on her face that wasn't tinged with sadness or exhaustion. It was a smile of pure, unadulterated relief. Good, she said, her voice soft. Thank you, Owen. She reached into her suit jacket pocket and pulled out a different card case, a simple, elegant silver one. She took out a card and handed it to him. This one, she said, is for real. That's my direct line, and the address for the Foundation's new offices. It's still being set up. We're borrowing space from the legal firm for now, but my assistant, Chloe, will call you this afternoon. She'll handle everything, the HR, the payroll, the insurance card. She'll expedite it. Okay, Owen said, his hand closing around the thick, heavy card. It felt like a key. I have to go, Evelyn said, gesturing back to her car. The board, it's not over. I have a lot of fires to put out. Harrison left a colossal mess. Go, Owen said. Go. And, Evelyn? She stopped. Thank you, he said. She just nodded, a profound, deep nod, and got in her car. She drove away, leaving him on the sidewalk, a man with a new job, a new life, and no idea what to do next. Frank and Gina were already back, standing in the diner doorway, their faces a mix of shock and dawning joy. "So?" Frank said, his voice rough. You working for the billionaire now?" Owen looked at the card in his hand, then at the diner, then at his old worn-out sneakers on the pavement. "Yeah, Frank," he said, a slow, dazed smile spreading across his face. "I guess I am." He didn't stay. He didn't go in the diner. He said goodbye to Frank and Gina, and he walked home. But this time, he wasn't a ghost. He felt, for the first time in years, solid, real. He walked into his empty apartment, the 9 a.m. silence deafening. It was too much. He couldn't just wait for a phone call. He had to do something. He pulled out the crumpled $350 bill from the specialist. "Please call our office." He picked up his phone. He dialed the number. "Dr. Harris's office, this is Brenda." "Hi, Brenda," Owen said, his voice shaking. "My name is Owen Beck. I'm Maya Beck's father." "Oh yes, Mr. Beck." Her voice became instantly professional, a little cool. "We've been leaving messages. As I told you, we can't schedule the consultation until the pre-authorization is—" I know," Owen interrupted. "I know, that's why I'm calling. My insurance has changed. Effective today. I don't have the card yet, but it's a corporate plan. Through Reed Dynamics. It's supposed to be the best one." The silence on the other end was instant. The coolness evaporated, replaced by startled efficiency. "Reed Dynamics? The executive plan?" I think so, yes," Owen said. Hold on one moment, Mr. Beck." He heard furious typing. "Okay, I see the new provider in the system. It's already active." "My goodness." "Okay, Dr. Harris's new treatment plan. The biologic. I'm resubmitting the pre-authorization right now." Owen held his breath, gripping the phone. He heard a click, a beep. "Mr. Beck?" Brenda's voice was different. It was stunned. It was just approved. Instantly. Full coverage. Owen's knees gave out. He sank onto one of his kitchen chairs, his head falling into his free hand. He couldn't speak. He just wept. A hot, silent, scalding relief that felt like it was tearing him apart and putting him back together all at once. "Mr. Beck?" Brenda said, her voice gentle now. "Owen, are you there?" "Yes," he whispered, his voice thick. "I'm here. Dr. Harris is booked solid, but with this approval, he's going to want to see her immediately. Can you and Maya be here at 2 p.m.? He looked at the clock. 11:30 a.m. He'd have to get her from school. "Yes, we'll be there." "We'll see you then," she said. "And I'm so happy for you, Owen." He hung up. He sat there in his kitchen for 10 full minutes, just letting the feeling wash over him. It was done. The fight. It was done. He picked up Maya from school at 1:30 p.m. "Daddy, am I in trouble?" she asked, her small face worried as he signed her out. "No, Doodlebug," he said, his voice rough. He swung her backpack over his shoulder. "You are the opposite of in trouble. We have a doctor's appointment." "Oh," her face fell. The old one?" "No," Owen said, taking her hand. "A new one, a better one. The one we've been waiting for." Dr. Harris's office was in the gleaming new medical tower, the one Owen had always looked at with a mix of awe and bitterness. The waiting room wasn't the old, cracked vinyl clinic. It was soft lighting, comfortable chairs, and a quiet that felt like peace, not poverty. They didn't even wait. Brenda waved them straight back. Dr. Harris was a kind man with tired eyes, but today he was smiling. "Owen, Maya, I just got the news from Brenda. This is the game changer we've been praying for." He didn't talk at Owen or over Maya. He knelt, getting on Maya's level. "Okay, Maya," he said. "You and I have been fighting a big, mean monster in your chest, and all we've had are little wooden swords. Well, today, I get to give you a big, magic, dragon-slaying one. We're going to start a new medicine. It's a small shot just once a month, and it's going to teach that monster to go to sleep. For good." Maya's eyes widened. A, a shot. Just a little pinch, he said. And I have the first dose, right here. If you're brave enough to take it today, I think you'll be feeling a lot better. Very, very soon. Maya looked at Owen. He nodded, his eyes blurring again. You're the bravest girl I know, Bug. She took a deep breath and nodded at the doctor. Okay, let's get the magic sword. Owen held her hand. She winced at the pinch, squeezed his fingers hard for just a second, and then it was over. That's it? She asked. That's it, Dr. Harris said, grinning as he put a small cartoon bandage on her arm. You did it. Now, it's going to take a little while to work, but I want to see you back in 2 weeks. I think we're going to see a whole new girl. Owen walked out of that office, Maya's hand in his, and he felt like he was floating. The fear he'd lived with, the constant, low-grade terror, it was gone. That night he tucked her into bed. She was already breathing easier. The relief may be psychological, but Owen didn't care. Daddy? She whispered, her eyes drooping. Yeah, baby. Did you beat the bully? Owen smoothed her hair back from her forehead. He thought of Harrison, his rage-filled face as he was dragged away. He thought of Evelyn, her sad, brave smile. He thought of the approval and the shot and the hope. Yeah, Doodlebug, he whispered, his voice thick. I think we did. 6 months later, Owen Beck sat in an office that finally felt like his. The smell of new paint and industrial carpet had faded, replaced by the scent of coffee and old books he'd brought in to line a shelf. His whiteboard was a chaotic, hopeful mess of names, arrows, and new initiatives. He was on the phone, his voice calm and assured. No, Mr. Kim, that's what the fund is for, he said, leaning back in his chair. The Make Whole grant covered the equipment Harrison's men destroyed. The new opportunity grant is to expand. If you want to hire 2 more people and open that second location, my board will approve it. Send me the proposal. He listened for a moment, a small smile on his face. You're welcome. Just pay it forward sometime. Okay, goodbye. He hung up. He wasn't a waiter in a suit anymore. He was a director. In 6 months, he had routed millions of dollars not just to repair the damage Harrison had done, but to actively invest in the communities Harrison had tried to gut. He'd met with dozens of families, tailors, shop owners, and laundromat operators. He'd listened to their stories. And then, he'd fixed it. His old dented laptop was gone, replaced by a sleek, powerful machine. He tapped the mouse, and his desktop background lit up. It was a new picture, taken last weekend. It was Maya, in a park. She was mid-run, her face bright red, her arms pumping, and she was laughing so hard her eyes were squeezed shut. She was chasing a soccer ball. She wasn't coughing. She wasn't buzzy. She was just running. Owen's phone buzzed. A text. Evelyn. Running late. Boardroom drama? Save me a good spot on the bench? Owen smiled. He typed back. Always. He looked at the clock. 3:15 p.m. He stood up, grabbing his jacket. He learned that the new job wasn't about the hours he sat at the desk. It was about the results. And today, the most important result was waiting for him. He drove a new, reliable sedan, the first car he'd ever owned that didn't make a strange noise, to the community park near Maya's school. It was a crisp autumn afternoon, and the kids' soccer practice was in full swing. He saw her immediately. A flash of bright pink cleats. Maya was everywhere. She was fast, a little clumsy, but absolutely relentless. She ran, she yelled, she dove for the ball and got grass stains on her knees. Owen just stood by the fence, his hands in his pockets, and watched her breathe. It was a miracle he'd never get tired of. The biologic, Dr. Harris had called her a textbook case of recovery. Her lungs were clear. Her future was too. Sorry I'm late. Evelyn walked up beside him, a trench coat over her simple jeans and sweater. She looked like a mom, not a CEO. Boardroom drama? He asked, not taking his eyes off the field. You don't want to know, she sighed, leaning on the fence next to him. Some of the old guard are still convinced a community fund is just glorified charity. I had to remind them that our stock price is up 12% because we're not being sued by the entire city for fraud. You're good at that, Owen said. I'm learning, she said. They stood in a comfortable, familiar silence, just watching the kids run. Did you see Frank's diner in the City Journal? Owen laughed. I did. Best retro diner experience. He's furious. He says he's running out of bacon every weekend. The blinking coffee mug sign is a huge hit, Evelyn said, her eyes twinkling. He'll never admit I was right. Never, Owen agreed. On the field, the coach blew a whistle. Practice was over. Daddy! Maya spotted him and came running over, her face flushed, her hair plastered to her forehead with sweat. She wasn't just walking. She wasn't gasping. She was sprinting. She launched herself at Owen, who scooped her up into a massive hug, burying his face in her sweaty hair. Whoa, Doodlebug, you were flying out there. I scored, Daddy. I scored a goal, she yelled, her voice loud and clear. She wiggled down and then, without a second thought, threw her arms around Evelyn's waist. Hi, Evie. Did you see my goal? Evelyn, still startled by the casual affection, hugged her back, her hand stroking Maya's hair. I did, Maya. It was incredible. You were faster than all the boys. I know, Maya said matter-of-factly. She grabbed both of their hands. Can we get ice cream? The good kind? Owen looked at Evelyn, a perfect, unspoken understanding passing between them. He thought of the terrified, broke man he had been. The man who couldn't even afford the bad kind of mac and cheese. He looked at this powerful, kind woman, the sad lady, from the diner, the girl he'd given $300 to at a rainy gate, the woman who had, in turn, given him everything. She wasn't just his boss. She wasn't just an old acquaintance. She was his friend. She was family. Yeah, Bug, Owen said, his voice thick. He squeezed Maya's hand. Let's go get the good kind. He and Evelyn looked at each other over Maya's head, and they both smiled. Under the bright autumn sky, surrounded by the sound of laughing children, the three of them walked out of the park. A new kind of family, forged not by blood, but by a shared past, a hard-won integrity, and a quiet, blueberry muffin-sized kindness that had, 20 years later, finally come full circle. And there it is, another story lived, together. Isn't it a strange and wonderful thing? For the last hour, we all shared the same world, even though we're miles apart. We created a collective memory. What's the one image from this story that you think will stay with you? Like a vivid memory? I would be truly moved to read it, and I'd love to know where you were while listening. It helps me picture the incredible community we're building. In sharing these stories, we remind each other that our feelings, our hopes, our struggles, they are all shared experiences. If you want to be here for the next memory we create together, please consider subscribing. This community is built one story and one listener at a time. Thank you for being a part of this one. It simply wouldn't have been the same without you. Until we share another story, be well and be good to one another.